So the main thing that people want to know is what will be the impact of these tariffs on and which sectors could get impacted in India. Now, with the US administration's announcement of 25% tariff on all Indian imports starting August 1, you may expect targeted volatility across key export-oriented sectors, especially those which have got material exposure to the United States. Sentimentally, the announcement can be viewed as negative. While there may still be a short-term adjustment window, much of the impact may be short-term in nature, and there may be adjustments in the tariff rate based on negotiations, which may happen immediately. So the negotiations will start right away, and hopefully a better solution can come out. Let us not forget that the United States represents around 20% of India's total exports. That is $87 billion in financial year 24-25, and the new tariff regime could challenge GDP forecasts, could knock off $30 billion from the GDP, also from equity flows and trade balances. Previously, the average tariff on India was around 3%, which now could see a significant increase to 25% or even more, because there's also talk of penalty, which has not been substantiated or defined so far. Also, India would stand at a comparative disadvantage with respect to trade agreements with countries like Vietnam and the Philippines. 25% tariff could challenge Indian equities, particularly in sectors which have got a high export ratio to the United States, and that may influence foreign capital flows and also, most importantly, the USD INR exchange rate. So, India's IT services sector is a traditional export engine but may not be directly affected by the tariffs. Yet it is facing significant macroeconomic drags from the United States slowdown, and there's a potential hit to discretionary tech spending by American firms. So although the maintenance work will remain, the discretionary tech spending can get impacted. And that's not very good news for the large cap IT companies such as Infosys, HCL, Tech Mahindra, and LTIMindtree. Pharmaceuticals may be insulated from the immediate tariff shocks, but concerns linger over the future policy changes. Pharmaceutical formulations and APIs are currently excluded from this tariff, consistent with the April 2025 reciprocal tariff framework. However, there's an ongoing Section 232 investigation into pharma imports as a medium-term overhang. The structural dependence on Indian pharma and cost sensitivity of the US healthcare system provide a strong case against aggressive tariff action on the sector, yet as a part of the negotiations, nothing can be ruled out. High duties on generics are unlikely to stick, as they would push the US healthcare costs much higher. India currently supplies around 45% of the US generics and 10 to 15% of the biosimilars by volume. Cipla and Piramal Pharma, both with strong US manufacturing footprints, are best positioned, however. Sun Pharma had already indicated in Q4 financial year 24-25 that any such costs, if imposed, would likely be passed on to the US consumers, which Donald Trump would not want. While the automobiles and auto parts are largely exempt under Section 232 provisions, Indian auto component makers remain vulnerable due to their exposures to the US demand cycles. Auto components, especially the ones that are export-oriented, will remain sensitive. So here we had the Samvardhana, Motherson, although they have a plant in Mexico, and Bharat Forge and Bosch. They generate a substantial portion of revenue from exports to North America. They may be impacted if there's a demand slowdown or supply chain disruption. Steel and aluminium sectors, already covered by Section 232 tariffs, are excluded from the new reciprocal duties. However, the global pricing and the demand pressures could still influence the sector's performance. There's also steel, aluminium, especially the ones that are export oriented and have a fair share of revenue coming into the United States. So despite the exemptions, stocks such as Hindalco, Tata Steel and JSW Steel may see near-term volatility. And finally, we'll just discuss textiles, because India's textile exports to the United States are not massive in global terms, yet the sector remains sentiment sensitive. Companies with significant US exposure would experience short-term selling pressure. And India's global market there, especially the US exports in sectors like textiles, pharma, etc., remains low, and much of the concern appears more sentiment-driven than directly related to trade. So here we have Welspun India, KPR Mill and Vardhaman Textiles are among the companies that may face some headwinds. And to get to know more what can happen, there's going to be short-term impact, of course, on the Nifty, Bank Nifty. But how long this can last, because there's not only this 25% can come down to 20 or even lower, but the bigger concern seems to be on the penalty aspect, which has not been defined. And that's, I think, where the entire trouble may lie. To get to know more and our views of where how much the impact could be on the Nifty, Bank Nifty, do join our Premium Plus, which gives you 10 to 12 days predictions of the market and good multi-bagger recommendations. You can WhatsApp us on 9820861044. Have a nice investing day. Take care. Bye-bye.